Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Before we get started, I want to ask you a question. Every single week, we bring you these episodes full of dozens of skills, habits, routines, and strategies to help you become more superhuman. Now, be honest. What percentage of those things are you actually able to implement in your life? Of course not. You need the accountability and community. And that's why in 2018, I launched the Becoming Superhuman Mastermind. Every month, as a community, we invite a world-renowned expert in to lead a 1-month challenge. Past challenges have included environmental design with Benjamin Hardy, hacking your sleep with Nick Littlehales, who is Cristiano Ronaldo's own sleep coach, and meditation with Muse founder Ariel Garten. On top of that, we send out a care package with all the gear and goodies you need to complete that month's challenge. And best of all, as a member, you get exclusive discounts to all kinds of events, courses, supplements, and gear. And those discounts alone are worth more than your entire membership. Look, as a listener of this podcast, we know that you stand to benefit a great deal from being in the group, but also that you stand to contribute a lot. And that's why we're offering 50% off your first month. To join, visit superhuman.blog/mastermind today. Greetings, SuperFriends, and welcome to a very special and deeply inspiring episode of the show. You guys, today we are rejoined by one of our most popular guests we've ever had on the show. That is the amazing, the astounding Hal Elrod. You probably know Hal because he is the author of the incredible series of books called The Miracle Morning, which is sold all over the world in many different languages and many different variants. Hal has recently celebrated selling over 1 million copies of that book. And I personally can tell you it is one of the episodes and one of the books that people most tell me changed their lives over the 200 plus episodes we've done on the show. What many people don't know is that after writing that book, Hal once again faced another near-death experience. He was diagnosed with a very rare and very aggressive form of cancer, which he has managed to, knock on wood, survive and beat against all odds, once again defying death. He recently published a new book called The Miracle Equation, talking about how he did this and how he reached this level of tenacity, ambition, faith, and effort in his life. I really enjoyed this episode. Every time I talk to Hal, every time I hear Hal speak, whether it's at one of our Genius Network meetings or just hanging out in a group of people, I'm always just blown away by his energy, his enthusiasm, his passion, and his wisdom. Well, I don't have much more to say than that. I really enjoyed this episode, and I know you guys are going to take a lot away from it. So, without any further ado, Mr. Hal Elrod. Mr. Hal Elrod, welcome back, my friend. How are you?
It is good to be back. I feel like I'm on a TV show or something, being interviewed for my next movie or something. It's good to be back, Jonathan.
Good to have you back. And as I was telling you earlier, people frequently come up to me or message me and tell me, I heard about that Hal Elrod guy on your show and I read his book and it changed my life.
Wow.
I'm just so excited to have you back, man.
It's an honor. And I'm so grateful that you brought me back, man. This is great. And we're going to have some fun. And in fact, I just told you this, so I'll tell your audience, this is my very first interview after doing, I've probably done 250 podcast interviews over the last 6-7 years, but they're always about The Miracle Morning, which has been my kind of flagship book, right? And I've got this new book coming out. And so this is cool because it's totally fresh for both of us. Like, this is the first time I'm ever talking about, I've talked about the miracle equation before, like the concept, here and there a little bit, but I've never done an interview really where we're going to dive into this. So yeah, I'm excited to dive in and see what comes out of it.
Awesome. So for folks who didn't listen to our first episode, and I highly recommend that they do after this one, but give folks a background. I always love to ask people who have as many pots in the fire as you do, how do you describe what you do? Tell us about your journey and tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go back to when I was 19 as a good kind of starting place. I started selling Cutco cutlery. I was actually a DJ on the radio. I was living my dream at the time, if you will, or starting my dream, I should say. I was making $10 an hour. That wasn't the dream, the ultimate dream. But I was DJing on the radio, which was the dream, to advance and become nationally syndicated and all of that. And I just got my second gig, but on a big radio station. And so that was where it kind of started. And then a buddy of mine, I was with him when he went to the Cutco office, right? He sold Cutco kitchen cutlery. And he used to always try to kind of recruit me, and say, "Oh, you'd be great at this." And I'd go, "Dude, I'm not a salesperson. I'm a DJ. Like, no interest in being in sales." And I went to the office with him. And long story short, his manager was very charismatic and authentic, and I really liked him. And we started talking. And I asked him about, tell me more about this opportunity with your company. And he explained it in a way that I was really interested. There was no ceiling on my income. I could set my own hours. I could earn as much as I wanted to based on how hard I wanted to work and how good I got at what I did. And since I set my own hours, I thought, man, I'm only DJing midnight to 6 a.m. on the weekends right now. I'm like the grunt shift. I'm the new guy. I'll give this a shot. And, didn't have big high hopes at all. I was a freshman in college. And in my first 10 days, I broke the company record. The company been around for 49 years. And wow. I broke the record. I sold more Cutco kitchen knives than almost anybody had in the 50-year history of the company. And that was like where my eyes just got big and opened up. And I'm like, whoa, man, if I keep up this pace, and of course, easier said than done, but I'm like, man, I'm going to be like a millionaire. This is crazy, And so about a year and a half into the career, I'd continued kind of my pace and broken a bunch of sales records. And I had been asked to give speeches at almost every event that I went to, office meetings every week, every few months, there'd be like a divisional conference, then there'd be regional conferences and national conferences. And I got to speak at almost all of them alongside the other, the top reps. And one night, December 3rd, 1999, to be exact, I was 20 years old and gave a speech at a regional event. And it was my first standing ovation. So like I was on cloud nine, I was like, it was just amazing night, and got into my brand new Ford Mustang, or first car I'd ever bought, a new car I bought in 3 weeks prior. And driving home that night, I was hit head on by a drunk driver. I died for 6 minutes. My heart stopped for 6 minutes. I was in a coma immediately. I broke 11 bones. I broke my leg in half. I broke my pelvis in 3 places. I broke my arm in half. I broke my eye socket. I mean, on and on and on. I had, all these serious injuries. And I was revived at the scene of the accident after my heart had stopped for 6 minutes, rushed to the hospital, spent 6 days in a coma, came out of the coma. I flatlined 2 more times in those 6 days. I technically died 3 times, if you will. Clinically, I died 3 times. Came out of the coma and had to face this unimaginable reality. Like, I'm in a lot of pain. My eye socket's broken. They say I'm going to be blind in the left eye. I may not hear out of the left ear. It was all bandaged up, so I couldn't really tell if I had hearing. They said I would never walk again, which I think at any age, that's pretty hard to hear. At 20, it was definitely, devastating, or potentially devastating. And, this is, again, I need to get to the point here because I could talk about this for an hour, but essentially I made a decision. And I think this is the greatest lesson that anybody can take away from this. And it's that we all face adversity, right? Big and small. We all have, and you could call it traffic adversity, right? Like, raise your hand if you don't like traffic. I mean, I think that's most of us. And what I realize is that whether it's, being stuck in traffic, or being, physically, being told you're never going to walk again, right? Or divorced, or losing a loved one, right? Like, you name the adversity, big or small. What I realized is through the power of acceptance, I just decided, you know what? If I never walk again, that means that's my fate. I can't change it. So I will be the happiest and the most grateful person that you've ever seen in a wheelchair. Because I realized that I can't change my circumstances at that point. I can't change my physical, if I can't walk, I can't walk. But that doesn't have to define my quality of life. It doesn't have to define my emotional well-being. And I apply that, I call it the can't change it philosophy, right? Or the 5-minute rule. And I learned that in my Cutco training, which is when something goes wrong, set your timer on your phone, give yourself 5 minutes to be upset about it. Moan, complain, cry, vent, whatever you got to do. When the timer goes off, you just simply, as an intelligent human being who wants to be happy and feel good, you acknowledge, okay, I can't go back in time and change the thing that upset me, but I can choose to accept it. And I might not be happy about it, but it's more powerful than that. I'm at peace with it. I'm at peace. It's a neutral emotional state. Peace isn't emotions are fleeting. You could be happy 1 minute, a phone call changes that. But when you learn how to accept all things you can't change unconditionally, you have what I call emotional invincibility, where no circumstance dictates your emotions. You choose your emotional state based on which emotional state would serve you in any given moment. And rarely is feeling sad and scared and angry and depressed and resentful. And rarely are those the optimum emotional states. Now, granted, there's value. Like if you feel guilty, that's typically the value in that is you pay attention to it, acknowledge it, go, okay, what did I do that I feel guilty about? Because I obviously violated one of my standards, right? A moral standard, or I violated something that I don't feel good about. So acknowledge it, learn from it, make a commitment to not do the same thing again. That's the value of what you might call a negative emotion, right? And then you learn from it, but you don't dwell. Most people dwell. Many of us, we're still suffering over things that happened when we were children, right? Like we were abused, we were whatever. And, I'm not here to say like, I can't judge anybody for, how you feel. But I would invite you to consider if something happened to you in the past, whether it was 5 minutes, 5 months, or 5 decades, it's not happening anymore. So if it's hurting you emotionally, it's not the thing that you think is hurting you. It's your resistance to the thing. So Jonathan, in other words, to the degree that we resist something we can't change, and when I say resist, I mean it's the degree we're wishing that it were different. That's the degree of emotional pain that we create for ourselves. And again, nothing to do with what's going on around you, everything to do with what's going on inside of you. And so for me, I decided I can't change that I was in a car accident. I believe I'm going to walk again. I'm going to visualize that. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to imagine it. I'm going to dwell on what I want while I'm totally have accepted what I don't want. I don't want to be in a wheelchair the rest of my life, right? That wasn't my ideal. It wasn't, but I'm at peace with that scenario. But therefore, it has no power over me. I'm not going to live in constant fear of it. I'm totally at peace with it. I've accepted it. I get to focus all my energy now on what I do want. And I'll wrap up the story, Jonathan, by telling you that I don't know, I don't have a graph to show this. I can't show you that as I accepted the worst case scenario, made peace with it, didn't have any emotional pain over it, focused all my energy on what I wanted. I don't have a graph to show you how that healed my body, but I do have a picture of me 3 weeks after the crash when the doctors came in, 2 weeks after I came out of the coma, and they came in and said, we don't, with x-rays, just routine x-rays, they said, we don't know how to explain this. Hal, but your body is healing so rapidly that I know we told you may never walk again. You actually can walk in therapy today. If you want to give it a try, you can take your first step. Wow. And even I, as an optimist, wasn't thinking that I'd be walking in 3 weeks. I was thinking like maybe a year, right? But I took my first step that day. And the beauty of it is I was so happy not when I took my first step, while I was being told I would never walk again, that the doctors thought during those 2 weeks from waking up from the coma until that first step, the doctors had called my parents in and said, we believe Hal's in denial or he's delusional because he's always smiling and laughing and joking and making us laugh. And that's not normal for a 20-year-old young man who's being told he's never going to walk again. And I share that story and I share this because if you're listening to this, whatever causes you emotional pain, past, present, or whatever could cause it in the future, if you can realize it's never the thing that you think is causing the pain, it's always self-created. And you can literally give yourself freedom from emotional pain in virtually an instant or 5 minutes. Set your timer for 5 minutes, be upset for 5 minutes. The moment you choose to accept it unconditionally as it is, just take a deep breath. So can't change it. It is what it is. I can choose, though, my attitude in any given set of circumstances, right? I think that's one of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves, one of the greatest tools that we can have in our toolkit to optimize our emotional state, to then not only create a quality of life, but to really, put yourself in the optimum state to generate the results, to move in the direction of your goals, your dreams, and everything that it is that you want to create.
Wow. There's so much wisdom to that, Hal, and it's so true. And I find it again and again and again in life is that it's not as much the circumstance as how you see the circumstance that dictates your experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, no one ever teaches us this, right? Like to me, this should be taught to every student from like kindergarten on, right? Like I teach my kids, can't change it, right? But yeah, no, it's true. It's like no one ever teaches this. So our normal human nature is something bad happens, I feel bad. Something good happens, I feel good. No one ever taught us that, you can feel however you want, whenever you want, no matter what's going on, right? And it takes practice. Like I always tell people, you can't just snap your fingers. And that's why the 5-minute rule is such a great thing because it's this buffer. right? It's not this like where, okay, I'm going to go from getting upset over when things go wrong to just being like, oh, everything's okay. Like, I don't know how to do that. And what happens, by the way, and this is really important, like when I learned the 5-minute rule from my sales manager at Cutco, who was like he was literally the number one sales manager in the history of the company, right? His office was number one of all time. So he's very smart. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to, help people, inspire people, manage people. And when he taught us the 5-minute rule, I was like, dude, you got to be kidding me. Like, I like the concept. It makes sense, but like 5 minutes is not enough. I need to be upset for like, can I get like 5 hours, maybe 5 days, right? Like, come on. But here's what happened. I'd set the timer for 5 minutes. And the first few times I did it, something would happen. Like a customer would cancel a big order that I was really counting on. And I'd go, no. And I'd go, okay, all right. 5-minute rule, 5-minute rule. I'd set the timer. And I'd go, gosh, I can't believe, I just, for 5 minutes, I'd be pacing and, just upset and stressed and tense. And the timer would go off. And I'd look at my phone like, I'm still upset. Like, I knew it wasn't enough. I need more than 5 minutes. But here's what happened, Jonathan. It's amazing, right? It's because it's a shift in your awareness when you start applying this. I'd set the timer and I would go, man, I can't believe this happened. This was just after like, maybe a few days or weeks. I don't remember exactly how long of practicing this. I'd set the timer and I'd go, dang it. I can't, I'd curse or whatever. And I can't believe this happened, man. This is so not what I wanted. And then I pick my phone back and I go, okay, I got 4 minutes and 32 more seconds, right? And I go, wait a minute. What's the value in me sitting here stewing over something that I have no control? I can't go back in time. I can't change it. Why would I put myself through another 4 minutes of being upset over it when I can spend those 4 minutes doing something productive and proactive to fix that or move forward, right? Not to go back in time and change it because that's impossible. But I can take steps now I can get on the phone and make some more sales calls, set up some more appointments, make some new sales. So I don't even think about this one anymore, right? And so it's like 5 minutes went from being like, there's no way that's enough to after a few days or a few weeks, I was like, well, that's a waste of 5 minutes of my life. And the 5-minute rule, I started calling it the 5-second rule. I'm like, no, man, I just need 5 seconds to moan, complain, and like, punch something or say a wall or hit, whatever. And then I'm good. I say can't change it. Those 3 powerful words, can't change it. Done. That means I accept it and I'm moving on, right? And, and we can get into this story later, but 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with a really rare aggressive form of cancer. In fact, it'll fit later in the miracle equation better. But, I was given a 30% chance of surviving. And if you're a pessimist, that's a 70% chance of dying, right? Like 70% chance you're going to die in the next few months to maybe, basically in the next few months. The cancer I had, it killed 70% of people that had it. It was very aggressive, and the day that I was diagnosed, I was talking to my wife and, she was distraught. I mean, afraid of losing her husband and the father of our 2 young children. And of course I was terrified too, but I couldn't change that I had cancer. And after practicing this philosophy, since I had my car accident, which was 20 years ago. But, I told her, I said, I literally within 5 minutes, maybe even 5 seconds, literally, obviously my brain was going a million miles an hour. I was processing it, but I was like, I can't change that I have cancer, but I can choose to be the happiest and the most grateful I've ever been in my life while I endure what I'm guessing are probably going to be the most difficult. Because my cancer was so aggressive and rare, like they're like, dude, you're going to go through the most intense chemo regimen that there is, like in existence. A lot of people go through chemo for like an hour a month. I would go through chemo for 72 hours a month. Wow. I would be hooked up to chemo for 5 consecutive days, round the clock in an IV in my arm. In fact, no, it couldn't be a normal IV. It was this special tube because the chemo was so strong, it would burn a hole in your vein. So I had this thing called a PICC line that went through my vein. It was this really thick plastic tube that went through the vein, through your arm, into the shoulder, into the artery, where the artery was thick enough that the chemo couldn't burn through it. So I would be hooked up to that for 72 hours. So anyway, it's been the hardest couple of years of my life. It's still going on. I mean, I'm cancer free technically, but I'm still on chemo. I still go in every month. I take daily chemo. I've got all sorts of horrific side effects that I won't even burden you guys with. But the day I was diagnosed with cancer, and I've maintained the same attitude the entire time, I said, sweetheart, look, I know you're scared, but and we'll get into this. I said, I'm going to apply the miracle equation, which has never let me down. And I said, there is no doubt in my mind that this cancer will be the best thing that ever happened to me. Wow. And and she's like, of course she's crying and she's almost angry. Like, what are you talking about? How's this? And I said, sweetheart, my car accident is the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, I didn't know that it was going to be, but in hindsight, who I am today is because of what I had to overcome. And it became my life's work. I started speaking and writing and all these things because I could help people overcome their challenges and achieve success despite all the excuses they had not to. And I said, I believe, through divine intervention or whatever, that this cancer experience, this is a gift that I am meant to learn from, and I will be able to help more people as a result of this. And I don't know exactly how, or I don't know any. Only hindsight's kind of going to tell. But I'm going into it with the mindset that I'm going to learn, I'm going to grow, and I'm going to be the happiest, grateful, while I go through it, And that's the power of acceptance. And I'll say one last thing on acceptance, and then we'll go over where you want with this. But so I mentioned the 5-minute rule, right? That's a great place to start because you give yourself a buffer where when something, bad happens, if you want to call it bad, right? But something that was, violates your expectation, what you wanted, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to try to accept it, like that's hard because we're programmed. Our response to adversity is habitual, right? It's like we respond to traffic the same way we responded to traffic the last 500 times we've hit traffic, right? Like it's habitual. So that 5-minute timer is great because it gives you a buffer. So the 5-minute rule is a great place to start applying this, this philosophy of accepting all the things you can't change. Then once the 5 minutes goes off, you say 3 powerful words, can't change it. And that reminds you, as an intelligent human being, if I can't change it, I'm not going to wish I could change it because it's futile. There's no point, right? But then there's the evolution of this is what I call accepting life before it happens. And that's where once you've practiced this for a few weeks, and the longer you've practiced it, the more you realize that, wow, I literally have control over my emotional state. The power of acceptance, unconditional acceptance, unlocks the door to emotional invincibility. It gives me that freedom from emotional pain. Once you have that, you go, you know what? Why don't I just accept everything that's ever going to happen to me before it even happens? And therefore, the emotional pain, it won't even show up because I've already accepted that, I know shit's going to, pardon my French, I know adversity is going to show up in my life. That's inevitable. No one doesn't have adversity, right? In fact, the bigger the goals, the bigger the dreams, the harder you work, usually the more and the bigger adversity you have to overcome, right? Notorious B.I.G. said it best, mo money, mo problems. But ultimately, you get to where you accept life where it happens. And that's why the day I was diagnosed with cancer, within a matter of minutes, I'm like, this will be the best thing that ever happened to me because I've accepted that no matter whatever happens to me, I'm not going to let that define my emotional state. I'm not going to let that dictate my quality of life. I get to choose it because I accept everything that I don't want and I focus all my energy on what I have that I'm grateful for and moving in the direction of achieving, creating, experiencing everything that I want in my life, right? And we all have that choice. It's universal.
Wow, man. Every time I hear you speak, whether it's on business or on marketing or on life or on decisions, faith, it's just deeply inspiring. Deeply, deeply inspiring. All right. At this point, I want to pause and take a moment to thank our sponsor, Four Sigmatic, who is making it easy for everyday people to unlock the incredible health benefits of mushrooms. I originally learned about Four Sigmatic when I met their founder at a conference in 2015, and I have been pretty much obsessed with their products ever since. Personally, I use their reishi mushroom tea most nights for an all-natural sleep aid. I carry their chaga immunity blend anytime I travel. And I've also pretty much switched out my usual coffee or yerba mate for their unbelievably awesome mushroom coffee, either in ground or in instant form. Now, what I love about the mushroom coffee is that it combines chaga for immune support with lion's mane for intense focus. And because of that, I actually find it to be more effective than most nootropics or stimulants, including Ritalin, despite having only 40 milligrams of caffeine. It's honestly insane. If you haven't tried out their products, I strongly, strongly recommend you do so. And to encourage you to give them a try, we've actually teamed up with Four Sigmatic to bring you an incredible 15% discount. To take advantage of that, just visit foursigmatic.com/superhuman today. All right, back to the show. Now, I got to ask you, Hal. So I'm going to kind of fast forward your story because I want to hear so much about this book that you've written. Last time we spoke, you gave an amazing, amazing talk at Genius Network about how to create a movement. And you really are a living, breathing example. Your Miracle Morning books have sold how many millions of copies?
just crossed 1 million copies. It's in the US, we're about 600,000, and then about 400,000 or 500,000 in 34 other countries.
And it's in so many different languages. There's a Miracle Morning book. I feel like there's a Miracle Morning for every walk of life. That book has been an incredible, incredible success. Why did you have to write another one?
No, it's a good question. And I mean, I really, the Miracle Morning is really, up until this point, it's been my life's work, because nothing I've ever put out into the world has ever made as big of an impact. And the way this new book came to be is, and I honestly, I wasn't really, I was thinking about writing another book. And I do have, there's all these books, as you said, in the Miracle Morning series. In fact, this Thursday, like in 3 days on Valentine's Day, 2019, the next book in the series, The Miracle Morning for Couples, comes out. So this Miracle Morning, the series, the original book, it's like, it changes people's lives so profoundly that I'm like, look, I have a responsibility to share this with the world. And it's reached 1 million people, which is unbelievable. When I wrote it, Jonathan, I was like, if this sells, if this helps a few people, that's why I wrote it. I felt a sense of responsibility. I didn't have a big platform. I wasn't famous. You know what I mean? Like, I had no way of thinking that it would sell 1,000 copies, let alone 1 million. Like, none, right? And once it started, I started getting email after email after email and reading these Amazon reviews. And they're like, wow, this saved my marriage. This doubled my income. The Miracle Morning got me off my depression medication. The Miracle Morning enabled me to start a business or write a book. Like, just stuff that if I wasn't seeing it myself, I'd be like, no way, like, it's crazy. And so I was like, I'm committed until further notice to just keep sharing the Miracle Morning. And that's what I've done. I've done, I've been on dozens of TV shows, and I've done hundreds of podcast interviews, and I just keep sharing the message, because I've reached 1 million people, but that means there's, 7 billion people that don't even know about it yet, right? So that's kind of my mindset, has been like, I've got to reach the world. In fact, right now we're doing the Miracle Morning for Teachers, where we have 70 schools across the country, in 70 classrooms, I should say, where teachers are implementing the Miracle Morning with their students to start the day. And that's part of my vision, is that every school in the world starts their day with the Miracle Morning to put their kids in a peak physical, mental, emotional state, help their kids to really create empathy with their kids so it minimizes bullying, hopefully ends bullying, puts their kids in an optimal state to focus so they get more out of school, right? So we're actually doing that right now. So there's all this stuff around the Miracle Morning. Well, a major publisher reached out to my agent and was like, hey, we really want to work with Hal Elrod. And we'd like to sign him. Like, does he want to write another book? And they reached out to me, and we scheduled a call. And so I brainstormed what are all the books I might write. I thought I could do like a Miracle Morning updated version. I've got this other book that I've already written just sitting on my computer called Beyond the Bestseller, which you heard about at the Genius Network. Mm-hmm. I've got a few different, Emotional Invincibility is a book I really want to write, which is like all the stuff we talked about up until this point, right? But then I guess you'd say pitched them, right? They wanted me to pitch them my book ideas, and I saved the one for last. And this was just I guess it was about a year ago. I had just been told I was cancer free. And I truly believe that the miracle equation is what enabled me to defy the odds and beat cancer. Now, I created the miracle equation way before the Miracle Morning in terms of as a concept. It was when I was 20, which is, Miracle Morning was like I was 26, I think. So it was way before Miracle Morning, 6 years before, when I was in sales. And I created it to break records and do things that had never been done before. And it was like kind of an experiment, and it worked. I taught it to all these other people, all my colleagues. Every single one of them surpassed anything in sales they had ever done before. And so I always thought about it as a book, but I thought, man, the only case studies I have are people that sold lots of kitchen knives with it. Right? I'm like, I don't feel like that's like universal enough to write a book about, But then when I was given a 30% chance of living, I'm like, okay, how am I going to ensure that there's a 100% chance that I'm in that 30%, right? Like, that was my question. And like almost immediately, the first, within a matter of, an hour maybe of thinking this through, I'm like, wait a minute, what about the miracle equation? Like, that allowed me to do things that had never been done before. And every successful person that I've studied, they apply the miracle equation. And we can get more into that, in a few minutes. So it's like this universal formula that the world's most successful people for centuries, and it's based on two very simple and straightforward decisions that are radically counterintuitive. So anyway, because in my history, I'm like, I've seen it work for me and every person that I've ever taught it to that applied it. That's how I'm going to beat this cancer. That's how I'm going to do what is, because it's like a miracle, right? It's something that is very when I say miracle, I'm not talking about a religious miracle. I define a miracle as simply something that is outside of the norm, outside the realm of probability, right? And that's where if you're breaking a record, it's not probable because it's never been done before. You're trying to do something that's never been done, right? If you're trying to be number one in the world at something, if you're in the NBA and you're a world champion, and there's a lot of athletic analogies I use with the miracle equation, like the world's greatest athletes, they all live by it, right? If you're trying to be number one, you're trying to be the best in the world. That's not probable, right? So, and that's the tagline of the book, by the way. It's how to move your biggest goals from possible to probable to inevitable, right? That's what the miracle equation does for me. So anyway, long story short, we'll wrap this up, which is the last idea that I pitched was the miracle equation to the publisher. I did not think they'd go for it because I feel like it's kind of, I don't know. I just didn't, I thought they'd like the other ideas better and they'd go for it. But what I said is I go, look, this is what's on my heart. I understand you guys need to write a book that is marketable. Like I think that's your number one focus as a publisher. You're a business. You want to make money, right? I don't know if this is the most marketable book, but this is the one that's on my heart that I've wanted to write for 19 years. And I feel like this right now, the timing in my life, I just used this thing that I call the miracle equation to defy the odds and beat cancer. And so I shared it with the publisher and I was surprised, but they're like, you know what? We think that's the one. Let us get back to you. And they came back to me like the next day and they said, hey, we'd love to sign you to write the miracle equation. And so that's it. Last thing I'll say is that the miracle morning and the miracle equation really work together. They really are a perfect complement. Here's why. The miracle morning is a daily personal development practice. It's based on the principle that, and it's a Jim Rohn kind of philosophy, that our levels of success in any area of our life, personally or professionally, our relationships, our health, our finances, our career, our level of success in any area will never exceed our level of personal development, or almost never. Seldom, I think, is the word Jim Rohn uses. It will seldom exceed our level of personal development. So in other words, if you want to achieve on a scale of 1 to 10, level 10 success, you have to become a level 10 person, right? Through daily evolving your consciousness, gaining new knowledge, evolving your practice, your skill set, et cetera, right? As you get better, your success parallels your level of personal development. So, but the thing is, there are what I call personal development junkies, right? Which are, so many people that, like you can engage in personal development every day and you can become more emotionally intelligent and more knowledgeable and more confident, but then you can still shy away from pursuing your biggest goals and dreams. Right? So you can be the most personally developed person in the world, but your results stay exactly the same. Like you feel better. And it's actually it almost makes it even harder because now you know that you're capable of so much more, but so many people, they're still afraid to go after these big, risky, scary, improbable goals. So what the miracle equation is, it's the other half of the equation. So the miracle morning is kind of half of the equation. It's the personal development side, but it's like, okay, I've got my personal development down pat. I've got this daily ritual it's accelerating my personal development beyond what I've ever imagined. Okay, but what's the plan, the process, the formula for not personal development, but goal achievement? How do I combine personal development with goal achievement? And that is what the miracle equation is. It's like, okay, now you've got your morning practice. You're personally developed beyond where you've ever been before. Okay, but how do you turn that into measurable, tangible, extraordinary results, or what I would call miracles? And that's what the miracle equation is about.
I'm so fascinated by this and I want to know everything about it. And, that's why we've twisted your arm and you've so generously agreed to lead a whole challenge in our mastermind about this so people can walk through a 1-month training of this. But give me an oversight of this miracle equation and how it relates also to the miracle morning, which I'd love to give people a refresher on since we haven't had you on the podcast in almost 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the first part of your question, then if I forget the second part, be ready to ask it again. So here we go. So the miracle equation, I mentioned it's made up of 2 decisions. And these decisions, they're super simple in their explanation, right? In fact, if I just told you what they are, you'd be like, well, that's it, right? So they're super simple. The miracle equation is very simple in its explanation, but it's extremely rare in its execution, right? Like I can explain it to you in a minute, and I will in a minute, and I'll explain it, but you'll realize like that's not normal. It's very counterintuitive. Most people, like they get that intellectually, but making those decisions, sustaining those decisions, living by those decisions, That's a little harder. And that's where the book comes into play, is it does take a book to I basically hit these in so many different ways. I don't know if you know Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule. But when I was writing my book, I thought a lot about her book. And her book's it's one of the top books in the world for the last couple of years. But her book, it literally takes 5 seconds to describe the 5-second rule. But she explained it in a, 200-page book. And so you get it from every angle and all these stories and these examples. And so, because if you just understand something, right, intellectually, but you don't understand how to live it and apply it and with different contexts that it would apply to and all this stuff, right? So here's the miracle equation, the 2 decisions. Number 1 is unwavering faith, and number 2 is extraordinary effort. In other words, the first decision to achieve everything you want in your life is you have to establish unwavering faith that you can achieve everything that you want in your life. And then specifically, everything that you want, like each thing, you need to go, okay, I need to establish unwavering faith that I can achieve X, right? That I could, make $100,000 in a year, that I could meet the person of my dreams, that I could, grow my company, achieve, right? Whatever, run a marathon, whatever it is, right? You have to establish unwavering faith that your goals are possible, that your dreams are possible. And then here's the harder part. By the way, we'll break this down each point. Establishing it is very hard. Say most people, right, we live in our comfort zone and we stay there. And we just stay there our whole lives. And we have goals and dreams, but they're just goals and dreams in the ethos, right? They don't ever materialize. I mean, tell me a person that doesn't want to be wealthy, but what percentage of society is wealthy? Like 1% maybe, right? So that means 99%, they have a goal or a dream of being wealthy, right? And maybe it's specific. I want to be a millionaire. I don't know, right? But they never establish the unwavering faith that they can. But if you look at every successful person in the world, every single successful person in the world that's ever achieved something great, contributed something great to our society, it all began that with them establishing unwavering faith that they could do something, accomplish something that they had no evidence that they could actually accomplish. So it's not normal to establish unwavering faith. It's counterintuitive to our human nature. The second part of that first decision is you have to maintain the unwavering faith. That's the unwavering part, right? And that's not normal. So let's say you do join the small percentage of people that's like, dude, I'm going to go for it. I believe it. I can become a millionaire. I can run a marathon, or I can whatever, right? I can start a company. I can write a book, whatever this big grandiose goals or dreams that you've had on your list for a while. Then you try, and it's a lot harder than you thought. You go, wow, man, this is actually really tough. Mm-hmm. And then maybe you're on the journey, and then you run into an obstacle, and you get thrown off track, and you're like, oh, my dang, I wasn't expecting that. So most people, if they are willing to establish the faith that they can achieve something, once they get knocked off track, the faith wavers, and they throw in the towel, right? So that's the first decision, is unwavering faith. There's 2 parts of it. It's establishing it to get started, and then maintaining it until. Right? You underline that word until twice, because that's why it's unwavering. You have to maintain it through the ups, the downs. When it looks like there's no chance in hell that you can reach your goal, the champions, they maintain unwavering faith that they can, right? You look at and I'll use a quick analogy, the greatest athletes in the world. And I always think of Michael Jordan, right? When I was a kid, he's stuck in my head as the epitome of a champion, right? Considered by most people, I would say, as the greatest basketball player in the history of the world. Of course, people argue, well, no, LeBron's the best or whatever, right? But anyway, definitely he's one of the best. And LeBron, by the way, does the same thing. At some point, they decided they could make every shot that they took. And you think about when the game is on the line, think about this. And even if you're not a basketball fan, this is real simple. You don't have to be a fan to get it. When the game is on the line and there's 30 seconds left or 5 seconds left, right? And there's only room for one more shot. Most people, most human beings, we'll call them players on the team, they don't want the ball because they don't have unwavering faith that they can make that shot. Now, Michael Jordan or LeBron James or anybody that lives by the miracle equation, right? Even if they missed their last 7 shots, right? Because your faith wavered. If you missed a shot, you're like, oh man, I'm having an off night. You see these champions where they're in the huddle. There's 5 seconds left in the game. They just missed. They've had a horrible game. They go, give me the ball. I want the ball because I have unwavering, they might not use this language, but I have unwavering faith that I will make this shot. Even if they miss the last 7 shots and they miss the last 2 game winners, right? Mm-hmm. Champions believe they can win at everything they do. And when they don't win, when they fail, when they fall, when they stumble, their faith doesn't waver. They keep their eye on what they want and believe that they can achieve it. And then what ends up happening is those are the players that in those clutch moments, they win the game, right? They don't make not all of them, but they're considered the best in the world. Think about that. That's one of the fundamental components of why they are the best in the world, because they go against their human nature, and they, even though there's always a possibility they're going to miss, they're going to fail, they have unwavering faith that they're going to make it and that they're going to win. And we can adopt that same mindset. So I'll get into the second decision here in a sec, but any thoughts or questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I want to ask a tongue-in-cheek kind of cheeky question, which is that really something that we can learn? And I'm really setting you up because I know you wouldn't have written a book if you didn't believe so. But I think a lot of people think that, that's just the way someone was raised, or they're just, an overly confident person. So talk to me about that. I mean, is that overwhelming confidence and tenacity, is that really something we can learn?
Yeah. So great question. And I'll tell you that I was not born this way. In fact, when I say this way, I'm not even this way most of the time. And my wife will tell you, we just had a conversation about this the last couple of days because I was sharing with her, she's dealing with some stuff, and I was telling her about all my insecurities, right? And because of how I grew up, right? When I grew up, I was picked on in school. I was kind of bullied. I was never a popular kid. And so I heard it recently, like we're all 14-year-olds in, 40-year-old bodies, right? Or 3-year-olds in 30-year-old bodies or whatever, right? Like we all hang on to our identities from being a kid. And so I still, when I started selling Cutco, because I was breaking records, like I ended up becoming one of the cool kids, if you will. But I didn't even realize that I was one of the cool kids until like the last few years. And that was like 20 years ago. I'm this insecure high school kid that thinks nobody really likes me and that the cool kids are going to definitely not like me. Right?
Yeah, I can relate.
Yeah. Right. And I think most of us can. And so like my confidence is almost because I know confidence is a tool. It's not ingrained in me. It's almost like I fake it till I make it every freaking time I take on a goal, like I'm always just faking it. I'm always going, okay, I'm deep down, I'm terrified that I'm going to fail deep down. Right. And that's actually what I'm glad you asked this because, and shoot, I don't know if I put this in the book, but you just remind me of something when I used to teach this 20 years ago, the miracle equation, like in speeches. And that is, I would say, look, the miracle equation doesn't mean that you actually believe it. Like when I created the miracle equation, I was trying to break the sales goal where I had a limited amount of time. It had never been done before. And I didn't really believe I could do it. And so the miracle equation wasn't well, hey, I deeply believe it. It was meaning I believe I'm going to do it. Like the unwavering faith, I didn't have unwavering faith. So I had to just choose unwavering faith. If that makes sense, right? Like, here's a way to put it. Many of the goals that I pursue, and like that first goal, I was trying to break the sales record. If anyone would have said, Hal, I'll bet you're not going to do it, dude. I'll bet you $1,000 you're not going to do it. I would have never bet any money because I didn't really think I was going to do it. But I knew that the only way I could do it was if I maintained unwavering faith until the last possible moment. Right. So that's why it was a decision. It wasn't an inherent belief, right? It was a decision. It was when I feel doubt, and this is the way that you apply this. When I decided, okay, I know there's going to be moments where I'm not on track for my goal, when I'm doubting my goal, when I'm doubting myself, when I'm afraid of failure. That's probably going to show up more often than not during this. It was a 2-week sales contest that I was in. I said, so how am I going to combat that? I'm going to combat that with unwavering faith. Unwavering faith is a very intangible concept. Like that's like a mindset. How do I actually apply it? And I use what I call the miracle mantra. I made this up and I went, I'm going to just, whenever I feel doubt and fear, I'm going to say my miracle mantra. I'm going to simply speak, I'm committed to achieving my goal no matter what. There is no other option. I'm committed. And I would, there were a few variations. I would say, I'm committed to giving it everything I have until the last possible moment, regardless of my results. No matter what, there's no other option. I'll say that one again because that's really the one that I think applies to all of us. Because if you say I'm committed to achieving the goal, you might not achieve the goal though. So that actually is a little harder. It's better to say I'm committed to giving it everything I have until the last possible moment, regardless of my results, right? Regardless whether or not I achieve the goal. No matter what, there's no other option. And so by me saying that over and over and over and over again, it reinforced my commitment to the second decision. And the second decision is extraordinary effort. Mm-hmm. Anyone in the world that's achieved extraordinary results, right? In any field. They did so by putting forth extraordinary effort. I beat cancer not by doing the least that was required of me. In addition to taking my chemo and stuff the doctors said, I beat cancer with every holistic practice that I could get my hands on. I took 70 supplements a day that I had researched and vetted the companies. I mean, the amount of research I did when I was exhausted, and I got a team. I begged all of my friends and family, like I got them to do research for me because a lot of times I was so freaking exhausted after chemo, I couldn't keep my eyes open and I was throwing up. So research wasn't even, I couldn't do it. So I would call or text my buddy and be like, hey, will you do me a huge favor? Would you read these blogs and then let me know like what the like synthesize in an email, like what I need to do? I took 70 supplements a day. I did acupuncture. I did ozone sauna. I did a real specific kind of massage. I read all these books on staying cancer free. I did coffee enemas every week. And by the way, I'll tell you, there is no effort more extraordinary than putting a tube up your butt and sticking hot coffee up there and holding it in for 12 to 30 minutes. But here's the neat thing, by the way. When you put forth extraordinary effort, what's cool is it's this I call it the unwavering faith, the faith, effort, and feedback loop. Meaning, you reinforce your faith. Because when you put forth extraordinary effort and you're doing things that are out of your comfort zone, that take effort, that take energy, intensity, like, maybe you're working harder than you ever worked before. Now your faith is reinforced because now you go, dude, I am going to do this. I am going to beat cancer. I am going to break this record. I am going to become a millionaire. I am going to write this book. I freaking deserve it. I'm working my tail off. Right? So it's this feedback loop. And then the more faith you have, the more you're motivated to put forth effort. And the more effort you put forth, the more you have faith that you're going to achieve the goal. And round you go. And when you do this, see, this isn't just a one-time strategy to achieve an individual goal. This is a way of living. This is how you show up to your life, to your work, to your relationships, to everything that you do. The miracle equation is a way of life. It's who you become. And when you live it, right, you separate yourself from the majority of society. And that's not a judgment on the majority of society. It's simply a fact based on how most of us live, right? It's how I lived most of my life. When I was 19 is when I started living this way. And when I was 20 is when I named it the miracle equation, right? And it was only because I was blessed with a mentor, right? And by the way, a mentor is anyone that you learn from. It could be a book you read is your mentor. That author is your mentor. Right? Jonathan, you are the mentor to anyone that listens to your podcast, right? In this case, I am your co-mentor on today's journey, right? Today's episode. But ultimately, when you live this way, the law of averages, right? Like, it doesn't apply to you anymore because you're not living normally. You're not living with fear. Yes, there's still fear there, but you're overriding fear with faith. Right? You're not doing what most people do, which is human nature is to take the path of least resistance. That's the opposite of extraordinary effort, and it leads to mediocre results in our lives. So when you live by the miracle equation, you're separating yourself from who you've been for your entire life, unless you live this way, by the way, which if you do, like you're nodding your head right now going, yeah, I've achieved extraordinary results. I've created miracles in my life because I live exactly how you're talking about, Hal, right? But if this for you is like, wow, this would be like, I could kind of, if I live this way, I could see how I could achieve all my goals and all my dreams. And so anyway, I'm going, I'll pause and turn it over to you, Jonathan, for the next question right now. I think there was a question I forgot to answer. So go ahead.
I got a bunch of ideas to share. First off, I'm really glad that I'm the first person interviewing you because your passion for this is palpable. I know you're a really energetic guy, but after 250 interviews, I think I'm getting the best one out of everyone.
Yeah, actually, that may be true, man, for sure.
And I want to add that it makes sense to me now what you said about like, look, I'll tell you this formula, but to actually do it is a totally different ballgame. And that's why you need a whole book. You reminded me of our mutual friend, Benjamin Hardy, who talks about signaling and how our perception of who we are is caused by what we repeatedly do. So if you want to have unwavering faith, right, you need to repeatedly do that over and over and over until you know in your mind that I'm not a quitter. I'm just going to take the shot because I don't quit, period. Whereas right now, you might think of yourself as, yeah, I quit sometimes. And then the other thing I wanted to add is just like, I think that in some sense, ambition and faith really in the way that you talk about it and extraordinary effort as well are kind of like onions, right? You always peel back a layer and you're like, I'm thinking big and I'm doing all these things. And then for me, I thought I was thinking really big. And then I started hanging out with guys like you and Ben Hardy and Joe Polish. And I'm like, man, I do not have unwavering faith in what I can do. Like all my unwavering faith ideas are like, yeah, I might be able to impact 1 million people. Now I'm thinking, how can we get this in front of 1 billion people? And as far as extraordinary effort, I mean, I listen to you talk about all the things that you've done to get the Miracle Morning in people's hands. I'm like, man, my effort is pretty ordinary compared to Hal's or Joe's or Ben's or Dean Graziosi. So it really is like, you might think that you're doing unwavering faith and extraordinary effort. And I assure you, there are many, many, many layers to that onion, deeper than you could possibly realize.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. I completely agree.
So how does this dovetail with the Miracle Morning?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like I was talking about earlier, is that, the Miracle Morning is your personal development, your daily personal development practice. And when I created it, as you know, it was very organic. It wasn't a book idea. Just like the Miracle Equation. They weren't book ideas. They were like, these were applied to my own life and they impacted me. So I started sharing them with everyone in my circle of influence, and they started changing. People were like, wow, this is really life-changing. And I'm like, oh, I guess I have a responsibility to share these things with the world, right? And the Miracle Morning it was my effort when I was, crashed, meaning the economy crashed and I crashed with it in 2008, where I just went, what are the world's most successful people do every day that I don't do? And I kept coming across morning rituals and morning routines. But if you're like I was, if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, I'm not a morning person, that was me. I'm like, dude, and I literally would not read any of these articles because I'm like, yeah, morning rituals, no, what else do they do? Like, what else does the world's most successful do that doesn't involve waking up early? Because I'm not doing that. And one article caught my attention, and I don't even remember the headline, but the headline caught my attention, and I read it, and it shifted my perspective. I was like, oh, I never realized. I thought having a morning routine was just like an option, like one of many things I could do. I didn't realize it's the linchpin. It's the foundation. How you start your day, it's universally for anyone. It's what sets the tone, your mindset, the direction. So the point is, the Miracle Morning was my attempt to create the ultimate morning ritual that would accelerate my success faster than, just turn things around for me, because I was struggling at that time. And it did. In 2 months, I doubled my income, so on and so forth. And so the Miracle Morning, it allows you to become the person that you need to be to create the things you want for your life, but it doesn't create the things. The Miracle Equation is how you create those things. But if you don't do the Miracle Morning, right? And actually, you know what? I take it back. I don't think you have to do the Miracle Morning for the Miracle Equation work, because I was doing the Miracle Equation 20 years ago before the Miracle Morning was a thing. So now that I'm saying this out loud, right? You don't have to have, both necessarily. But the point is, the Miracle Morning enables you to become a better version of yourself. So that makes you a more capable version of yourself, which means that when you apply the Miracle Equation, it's going to work that much better, because you're going to be more effective. You're going to be more confident. You're going to be better equipped to apply the Miracle Equation. But again, I had never done a Miracle Morning back when I applied the Miracle Equation. So, you don't need both books. They do both stand alone. But yeah, that's how they work together. Is the Miracle Morning is your system for personal development. The Miracle Equation is your system for goal achievement.
I love it. And I know we're running out of time. I just want to ask one more quick question. Something you talk about in the book is inherent human conflict. What does that mean?
Yeah, the inherent human conflict is, we all suffer from it. And it is simply that there's two parts to it. Number one, we all want more, right? Like we all want the life of our dreams. Like we all have an idea of what that would be. Often we have an idea of it in a state of, like, we see somebody, man, guy would love to, could be anything from, you see a Ferrari and you're like, dude, I love that car. Like, this is me as a kid, like, oh man, what does that guy do? Like, I would love to be able to drive that car, or you see whatever it is. We all want to have the most extraordinary life we can imagine. And we all have this innate desire inside of us to fulfill our potential. Right? Like we all have unlimited potential, and we have this innate drive and desire to live to our full potential. Like we all want to be the best we can be. If we're measuring success on a scale of 1 to 10, we all want level 10 success. We want to be a level 10 version of ourselves. The conflict is, though, that we all suffer from what, I believe it's often called imposter syndrome, or Marianne Williamson has, I love her quote. I mean, I think this defines it, and I'll probably butcher the quote, but, she said people often ask, who am I to be great, talented, gorgeous, beautiful, wealthy, whatever, right? But the real question is, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. You're playing small, doesn't serve the world. Like, essentially saying we're all capable of anything. So the point is, we all want to have the most amazing life we could imagine. We all know that we have more potential, yet most of us don't believe we really deserve that life. And most of us aren't doing the things to tap into our full potential. So there's this inherent conflict between what we want and what we know we're capable of and how we're actually living our lives. And my mission is with the Miracle Morning and the Miracle Equation is really to eliminate that conflict so that you get really clear on not just wanting a great life, but what exactly on a scale of 1, if you're defining I call it the level 10 life, right? But you're defining the best life you can imagine in each area. What does that look like? And then who do you need to become? And that's what the Miracle Morning does. Who do you need to become to be worthy? And I don't mean worthy in terms of like an inherent worthiness, but like, if you're going to, for example, if you want to be the best basketball player in the world, right? Well, to be worthy of that, you have to practice, right? So when I say worthy, I mean worthy meaning you put in the effort, the time to gain the knowledge, the skills, the abilities to create that vision for your life. And so that's it. The inherent human conflict is simply knowing you want more, you're capable of more, but not living in alignment of all it is that you want and all it is that you're capable of. And to me, the Miracle Equation is how you close that gap and the Miracle Morning too.
Wow. Well, I got some reading to do and I got to brush up on my Miracle Morning. Hal, I know we are actually picking up a copy of the Miracle Equation for every single one of our Mastermind members who are going to get to learn and read along with you for a 1-month challenge. Folks should definitely check that out because Hal's a very, very busy man and a family man. It is a pretty unique and rare privilege, even for me, to get to spend a month hanging out with you virtually. But if people aren't in that mastermind, where can they pick up a copy of this book? And we'll make sure to link them up in the show notes.
It is on all of your favorite retailers. So, you can get it on Amazon, Audible, iBooks. It's at Walmart, I believe, or at least walmart.com, target.com, Barnes & Noble. Yeah, pretty much anywhere that you like to get your books or any format. I think it's available at all of them.
Fantastic. And that book, ladies and gentlemen, is coming out today, the day that this podcast is coming out, which remind me, I think it's March 18th, 16th?
It is April 16th.
April 16th, which should be today if you are listening to this. I don't know.
I get my months wrong too. No worries, Jonathan.
Yeah, I've delegated all that scheduling. So awesome. So go pick up a copy of that or consider joining the Mastermind so you can hang out with myself and Hal Elrod. Mr. Hal Elrod, always a pleasure, man. I'm so inspired by everything you're doing. And it's really, honestly, a genuine privilege to bring your message to my audience. And you're one hell of an inspiring guy. Thank you for all you do.
You're Jonathan. It takes one to know one, my friend. And you are very welcome. And it really is an honor and a pleasure to talk with you and to share with your audience, your listeners, everybody tuned in. Thank you so much for your time. And I hope you get a lot of value out of the Miracle Equation.
All right, brother. Well, I'll see you soon in Phoenix.
Looking forward to it, man.
All right. Take care. All right, super friends, that is all we have for you today. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the show and I hope you learned a ton of actionable information, tips, advice that will help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher or drop us a quick little note on the Twitter machine at GoSuperhuman. Also, if you have any ideas for anyone out there who you would love to see on the show, we always love to hear your recommendations. You can submit on our website or you can just drop us an email and let us know. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.